Hi. Right, I'm talking about Go and Mongo, MongoDB to be exact. Now, MongoDB is probably the most popular NoSQL database out there. It's a cross we have to bear. But we will be expected at some point to probably connect your software to MongoDB. There's an interesting problem when you're working with Go, and that's simply, sorry, I'm a handy person. Anyway, there's an interesting problem that you have when you're working with Go, and that is that there are now two drivers. There are two ways of talking to it. And first thing I'm going to do is actually go, this is me. I'm DJ Morgan. I'm technical content curator at Compose. We do databases. You'll find me all over the place. Come on. Right. First thing to know about is MGO. MGO is the original driver that came out for Go. It's a really great little driver. It was originally the only game in town, and it's very Go idiomatic. It was written by a person who really likes Go, and he did it in the right style. And the most important thing that changed was, surprised everybody, was MongoDB actually adopted it for their tooling. So it's very rare for a company to adopt a tool that isn't their own from outside to start rebuilding their own tools. I'm going to show one of the problems with it, though, is that there was a lot of messing around you had to do. If you wanted a secure connection, you had to go out and make your own TLS connections and wrap it all up, because it was a very, very idiomatic, or is a very idiomatic thing. You have to dial in for dial servers and do dial with info. It's all dial-based. It's fiddly. On the upside, it's also really quick to sort of pull data out. Boom. You can retrieve a whole set of fields straight into an array. Don't need to worry about anything. Just pull it straight out, nice and easy. It's also pretty easy to write things. It's a very simple. You get a session, you get a collection, you write to it. This is why a lot of people loved MGO, and they still love it. Unfortunately, there was one person who kind of fell out of love with it, and that was this author. Gustav Nehemiah did a beautiful job keeping it up and running, but he went off and doing other things. Big thanks to him, because otherwise there wouldn't be any Go MongoDB code out there. Last update was 2016. The original MGO still works, but it's a bit rotty. You know how it is. But that's okay, because that means that forks appear to fill the gap. Lots of forks. So at one point, 554 forks, the last count. But as things changed, one fork has stood out now. It's called the Global Sign MGO fork, and it's kind of blessed by Nehemiah. He actually points people at that, and it's got a good set of, it's gone through and fixed a lot of things that were broken. It's still a pain to do a TLS connection, these things, but it does get you 3.2, 3.4, and 3.6 features, which are all sort of iterated through, and they're still working on it. If you're going to use MGO, use that. It's community supported, and it works. But, and this is where it gets interesting, MongoDB themselves turned up and said, start this year, we're writing our own driver. Basically, they kind of felt the pain of relying on MGO. They had their own huge fork of MGO, which they wouldn't release outside, apparently. It had lots of fixes, but it was just a nightmare to track. Now, from their point of view, and you have to give them credit, they have a very complex spec for handling drivers. They port it across every language anyway. So you find the same features and functionality spread across different languages. So what this new MongoDB driver is going to do is track that ongoing development. But that has a price. If you love your Go idioms, this is less Go idiomatic. They actually went through a process of doing the first pass, and then did a second pass, removing Go idioms so that it flattened out against the generic spec. And now they're going on a 4th or 5th pass, sort of adding some idioms back in where it doesn't break the model for people. The biggie, though, is it's more MongoDB current. And that's really important because it's functional right now, but still alpha. Since this slide was done, 11 came out, apparently. The biggie is they're changing the protocol. It's the backwards compatibility still works, but there's this whole thing called op message in MongoDB where they're getting rid of dozens and dozens of little opcodes which did different functions and reducing them down to a single message. Brilliant. Simplifies everything. Only thing is that every driver has to follow this lockstep and handle all the backwards compatibility. But it does make things, it will make life simpler. But it also means that things will change, and it does put a kind of lifeline, dead stop on MGO. At some point, MGO will not speak op message. They're doing lots of work on the BSON codec redesign, so that they're getting it prettier. Lots of outstanding issues, but that's to be expected. They've only been doing it since January. Flip over here. It's kind of cleaner to code with. Hate to say it, but you know. Here's a bit of code here. Reach over there for you folks. Here's a bit of code. If you look at the top, we're just getting the connection strings. If it's SSL, if it has a certificate, that's all you need to do. No fiddling around with X509 structures and bits of crypto. It already knows about that. Otherwise, just connect. And you can defer your disconnect as you want to. Reading, on the other hand, MongoDB developers will go along the lines of, you're going to be working with lots of big data. Therefore, you will always get cursors. There's no nice things of reading your thing into an array and just crossing your fingers. It'll work. You have to go and basically get a cursor and walk through decoding all the items. If you're used to the SQL drivers, you won't have too much of a problem with that. If you're used to nice, easy, no SQL drivers, you'll find it a bit irritating. What's also a little irritating at the moment is they haven't cleaned up all the niceness around defining things like sorting options. So you have this mongo.op.sort bson new document in 32 words, sort on word. That's all that says. I'm fully expecting lots of helpers to come along with this, or it's going to tidy itself up no end. Then again, yeah, writing's quite simple. Make a BSON document, and bang, it's in the database. It's swings and roundabouts. Of course, I've got that. Connection's easier, reading's cursor-centric, you'll get used to it. But unlike examples, real code will tend to use cursors because you do not have memory space for 4 million records. Well, you might. I mean, you might have a big machine, but writing is a lot simpler, but compiling your own BSON documents can be a little tedious. Again, that's stuff of the BSON codecs that they're working on. They're trying to make that simpler, so you will probably see a very clean way of transmuting JSON structures into BSON structures later. It's all in development, though. This is my favorite slide. Lovely space rocket. The question is which to pick. And this is just a simple practical advice. If you've got a long time scale on your project, consider looking at the MongoDB driver. It's working, it's functional, it will do most things, and you'll be slightly ahead of the curve. If you've got to do stuff now, the chances are you'll want to use the global sign driver, but always, and when you're working with a database, abstract your data access, and I don't mean use a norm, but abstract your data access so you can move between databases in the future. If you're curious about all of these, here's a couple of links. There's the link for the most recent MGO and its changes. There's a link for MongoDB's Go driver, and this is my day job. That's our grand tour of Golang examples connecting to MongoDB with this driver, with the Go driver, with MGO, and also a whole host of other databases. If you've ever sat there and gone, well, where do I start with the database connecting? Start there. And that's it. Thank you.